Hi everybody, it's Professor Levi Allen, and I'm here today to talk to you about modernism. So modernism is the age of all the isms. So you're going to see cubism and Dadaism and Surrealism and futurism and suprematism. So each one has their own rules and their own way of seeing the world differently. We're talking about post-World War I up to post-World War II. So it's this concept of this change in the world. So who gets to bend those rules? Who gets to be the person who is thinking about these changes? We're going to look at two artists. We're going to look at Lee Miller, one of my favorites, and Meret Oppenheim, who talk about the ways in which modernism kind of takes the normal and makes it uncanny or surreal. It's claiming space in this movement and taking it into this beautifully strange world. So the first artist I mentioned is Lee Miller, and she was born in 1907 in Poughkeepsie, New York. So she's from that slightly over the Hudson River Valley area of New York. And she was in a family that really encouraged curiosity. Her father was an amateur photographer. He would pose Lee in these photos all the time when she was young. And that really, a lot of people think, shaped how she understood the world and kind of this idea of female model as an object and how she wants to switch that later in her career. In her 20s, she became an overnight sensation as a fashion model. So it's a great story. Condé Nast, who is actually a person who made all those magazines, he pulls her out of traffic in the streets of New York City and says, "You look amazing. You are going to be the cover of Vogue for the 1927 issue." But she wanted to not be just a pretty face. If you see this image, she is beautiful. But she said, "I would rather take the picture than be in one." So what's she going to do? She's going to pack up and she's going to move to Paris, which is the next part of our story. So when Lee Miller moves to Paris, she meets Man Ray, who is at the forefront of the Surrealism movement. And this is one of her photographs of him. She becomes a creative partner with Man Ray. They also become lovers. And she wants to not just be in his shadows. She really wants to explore different techniques and ideas and actually create a lot of things together. So she is his muse and he is hers. And when they break up, there's this passionate affair that's destroyed. It's a really intriguing way to look at these artists. So one of the things they created together was this concept called solarization. The story goes that while Lee was in a photography studio in the darkroom, there was an accident. A mouse ran over her foot. She flipped on the light to see what it was. And then all these ghostly outlines appeared on this image. And this is one of them. And we're going to see this image again later. So keep it in the back of your head. And they look like dreams and shadows, and it becomes a new style and a new way of creating, which leads into some of the portraits, like the one we saw with Man Ray and Lee Miller before. So the one she created is the image to my left, but the one above me is one that Man Ray takes, and it's just of Lee Miller's lips, and he wanted to emphasize the passion she had over him, especially since their affair was done and the imprint she left on him. So again, she's back into that object character, but she wants to create something next. So she becomes a war correspondent. So that's where she is going to move in her journey. As a war correspondent, Lee Miller starts to write for Vogue, both the British and American versions, and she's exposing these readers to a variety of things. So she is looking at U.S. tent camps, like you see in this image from the Vogue 1944 cover story. She's looking at colonels. This is the mad colonel on his way to be executed. She is in concentration camps. She photographed the London Blitz. This is an image of her on the front lines. She is crawling through things. She is really documenting all of World War II and showing she is not just a pretty face. She is really here to make an impact and expose the atrocities of war. So perhaps, though, one of her most famous photographs is the one we're going to look at next. So I want to set the stage to this photo. I know you can read the title with something that Lee said herself. She said, "I've been carrying Hitler's Munich address around in my pocket for years, and I finally had a chance to use it. But my host wasn't home. I took some pictures of the place, and I also got a good night's sleep in his bed. I even washed the dirt of Dachau off in his tub." So the story behind this image is that Lee Miller had come directly from the concentration camps of Dachau, and she went into his apartment. She stripped down. She bathed off the dust of that horrific experience, and it staged this photograph. And it's partially to show you the dirt with the combat boots and the discarded uniform on the chair. It's showing her washing herself clean of this atrocity, and this bathroom that existed in the horrors of war. So it's a really kind of part documentation, part surrealist staging, part exposure of some of humanity's darkest moments. She wants you to look at these concepts and ideas. So Lee Miller is really turning surrealism into something that is super personal and a reflective lens, and she wants to see what happens when she flips herself from being in front of the camera to behind the camera and creating these staged and unusual events. So pause here if you need to. I'll promise I'll be here waiting for you as we get ready to discuss our next artist. So our next surrealist artist is Meret Oppenheim. She was born in 1913 in Berlin, and she grew up in a family, she actually grew up in Switzerland, and this family loves psychology, loves myths, and dreamscapes. Carl Jung, that philosopher, was her father's cousin, so she really has this kind of steeped into her soul and her family story of how powerful dream imagery can be. As a teenager, she is going to devour stories of fairy tales and folklore. And she said her dreams were as important to her as her waking life at this time. By the time she's 18, she also left for Paris, just like Lee Miller did. And she walked her way right into that surrealist circle. And she's going to work for Man Ray too. So let's take a look at some of her stuff. So as you just mentioned, Meret started as one of Man Ray's models. She had fully entered into this world of surrealism. She also becomes one of his lovers. And this image, this erotic voile, is an example of some of the ways in which Man Ray was playing with the concepts of photography and eroticism and surrealism and how to create these shapes. But similarly to Lee Miller, Meret did not want to be a model only. She wanted to do other things. She had all of this rich history of her own she wanted to discuss and discover. So that's what she's going to start to do. But I did want to show you very quickly. Remember, we talked about this image when we looked at Lee Miller. So a lot of people think that it might be Meret, which is intriguing that these two women were working together at this time with Man Ray and creating things. Perhaps they were bouncing ideas off of each other and definitely were in the same circles to discuss some of the concepts of how surrealism looked at a model and how then that model can turn and create as well. So what does a model muse create when they are creating on the other side? They create something like this. So this is one of Meret's most famous work. It's called Object in Fur or Breakfast in Fur. So the story goes that she's sitting in a cafe with Picasso and Dora Maar, and she's wearing a bracelet, Meret is, that she made out of fur. And Picasso says, you could make anything in fur. So you could take anything and turn it into cover it in fur. And Meret says, even this teacup. And that's how her masterpiece was conceived. So she created this very unusual work. You can actually go see it if you like. It's on the 5th floor of the MoMA if you get a chance to stop in New York City and visit it. But envision this. So it's a furry teacup, saucer, and spoon. It's playful, right? There's that soft fur that you're looking at, but it's a little unsettling. I mean, what would the tea taste like? It would be weird, right? You'd feel that fur in your mouth. There'd be texture. If you envision like getting a hair in your mouth when you drink something, there's all of that. So it would make this ordinary activity, drinking a cup of tea, into something strange, maybe playful, maybe slightly odd, maybe erotic, definitely a little weird, and totally unforgettable. So this next piece is also unforgettable. It's fur gloves with wooden fingers. So again, imagine you're putting on your gloves. It's chilly. I mean, that's hard for my Florida students to envision us being able to put on gloves for super chilly days. But you're putting them on, but the edges are soft, but are pieces of wood that are painted with nail varnish. So you look super fancy, but it's not incredibly practical. It's an added element of that, oh, what's going on here? Do I need to stop? Is something strange occurring? That weirdness, again, that unfamiliarity of something that is meant to be very familiar and mundane. So it looks super cozy, it looks elegant, but then there's that, oh, hesitation moment, and that's what Meret wants to play with these images. The last object creation of Meret I want to leave you with is the sugar ring. I am a total magpie. I love glittery, sparkly things. I'm a jewelry lover. And so this is one that Meret made. It is actually a cube of sugar. So it's this really delicate ring that has something that's very ephemeral on top of it. It was made in the 1930s. You were meant to wear it, and it's a jewel that disappears. So it's precious, but it's worthless. It's playful, but it's very thoughtful. Like, rings are meant to be the capstone of your outfit. Like, you put the icing on your cake. So there's a play with the sugar element of that. So there is, again, that kind of slightly unusual, uncanny turn to what she wants you to look at. Meret was fascinating. Sometimes she wouldn't even sign her work because she wants the work to stand on its own. She doesn't want to be a novelty, even though her work feels like that sometimes. She said freedom isn't given. It's something you have to take. So she wants you to take these moments and hang on to them. She's twisting these ordinary things into hidden jokes and dreamlike ideas. So before we close, I want to give you some extra credit. As you're thinking about Lee Miller and Meret Oppenheimer, these isms of modernism, they're not just about new styles, they're about breaking the rules. So I want you to break the rules. I want you to create something surreal or uncanny. I want you to look at an everyday object and make it feel, so something ordinary, and make it feel uncanny or weird or unsettling or playing with concepts and forms. So pick anything in your everyday life. So it can be a coffee cup. It could be your shoelace. It can be jewelry that you wear. Arrange it, decorate it, make a dreamscape. You're going to post this on the discussion board. There's a lot more instructions on there, and you're going to tell me about why this piece feels that way for you. What hidden messages or jokes are you looking at it? And you can earn some bonus points on your next test. As we leave these two women and their uncanny creations, I want you to think again about your world, even if you don't do the extra credit. Just think about the ways in which you can find the hidden meanings of things, and how do we make meaning in unusual times? How do we create spaces for creativity when the world seems unusual or cruel or unfair or strange? So just like they were creating, what can you do to create this space in the world around you? So all of these isms that you look at for modernism are going to ask you to explore that. And I want to invite you to think about doing the same. Until next time.